Well, hello everyone. Well, my name is Lady Machal. I'm the MCVP iGE, and today in this consultancy space, we are going to talk about IGE, Incoming Global Volunteer. So in this space, we are going to have different topics. So the first one is why IGE, the MOS and KPI of the function, the job description and key focus of the function, key synergy of the function, timeline, and suggested main competence and behavior required as a LCVP. So the objective itself is understanding the role and understanding the skills and competences necessary, like to have to be LCP. So before talking itself about like the competencies, the MOS, and so on, I want to talk a little bit about the history of the product and why that makes IG that relevant nowadays in the market. If you check data about how the startups are working since 2000, is noticed it's evident that the companies like let's say startups or small companies are growing like step by step, like year by the year. So for that reason, G is relevant. From 2014, ISEC itself started to work with GE as another objective, as another opportunity, let's say, from GT, because GT since 90s is dropping, but GT was the first product that ISEC has itself. But with the development of GV, GT start to drop and GV growing, but we don't have anything that can support in the middle, like the performance of both, let's say, that was different from both operations, but also that can help the development and also can help the market. So for that reason, Global Entrepreneurs started. The idea, when you think about the rest of the timeline, IG is the only function that is continue growing and growing and growing. Of course, there's some, like if you check data based on different entities, of course you can check that maybe can be the possibility that they are dropping. But in terms of GE as a function in ISEC, is growing constantly in all the recent years. GE itself, we work with the startups, but in terms of what kind of startups we can work, we have different products. So R5: marketing, sales and business development, business administration, information technology, and engineering. Something that is really important to understand from here is like that usually when we are talking about the difference of products that we have, we need to be aligned about those products. Let's say that if we are making that we're trying to approach startups to have opportunities with them, we need to be clear that it should be only those startups. Of course, if you go to Expa, you can check that some entities, I'm not going to say names of the entities, they have opportunities that are really diverse, let's say, that can be an opportunity just to have like yoga classes, just to, I don't know, to I don't know, but really diverse in terms that they're not aligned at all with the subproducts. And those subproducts, we have it in ISEC, and it's because we understand that this is the requirement from the market in terms of startups nowadays. So something important that is like relevant to understand is what is the difference between GE and GT. If you understand like a little bit like basics of the function, you will say the first thing is of course the duration, but it's not that real, because if you see the duration based on the XPPs, we can have a 6 to 12 for GE and from 6 weeks to 78 for GT. But the real difference between GE and GT is the value proposition. If you don't really understand the value proposition, it's something that you have to, okay, wait a second, like read a little bit, understand a little bit, because if not, you are going to be confused. And when you are going to have meetings with IR, with companies, you are not going to express the in the way that should be the best one, because you don't have clarity about how to work with GE. So GE and GT are different, of course, because in GE we work with startups. Are the kind of companies that are starting to be in the market, that they have to explore, they have to make like tests to understand if the product that they're creating or the service that they are providing is good enough and it's aligned about the supply that they can have. Then, of course, the duration, as I said, but basically in Malaysia we have only opportunities in this moment for 3 months, but we want to explore to have opportunities for 6 months, but 6 months, sorry, 6 weeks. But for that, we have to explore a little bit more the market. In terms of allowance, we don't provide allowance, but if you go and check, of course, the exchange standards, like every operation in ISEC, you can see that we need to provide accommodation, right? And that is something that is different between GE and GT. In GE, always we provide accommodation, and in our opportunities, most of the cases they have supporting the allowance to have to cover that accommodation. In GT, they don't have accommodation itself, so it's another difference that we can check. In terms of the value proposition, let's say, it's entrepreneur experience and explore the field. But you have to think that G in most of the cases are for the students that they are continue like in the uni, and they need to have the internship. Maybe they don't have experience, so the idea it's to provide more experience or more relevance for the CV. So when you understand that your EPs are going to be the students that they are going to have the internship, you need to sell this in the meeting with the company or the startup, let's say. Because if not, the company is going to say to you, okay, I want a person with experience of 2 years, but you cannot provide that kind of profiles because basically GE is not providing, let's say, OGE is not providing those profiles. So for that reason, it's important to understand like the basics and the value proposition of the function itself. So if we are defining like clearly the startup should be a company that has less than 5 years in the market, and it's because of course, as the word said, starting the in the market, right? The only companies that we can approach are the startups or incubators that are in the market of Malaysia. But go more deeply why GE is important. So in this part, I want to understand. I want to explain that we have different stakeholders. As every function in IS, we have different stakeholders. So one of them, of course, is the are all the APs that we receive as incoming. Then all the startups that we are working with that are the TN takers, and of course the membership, because at the end is part of the startup, the stakeholders that we can have. In terms of youth, you need to understand what is the value proposition that we can present to them. So if you think about that someone is going to work in another country for 3 months, it means that they're going to develop a bit of experience in the major that they studied before. So the professional experience should be one of the most important things that, let's say, OG should expose to the in the attraction process. Then global opportunity, because of course it can be that someone from Morocco, someone from Tunisia, someone from MOC, from Vietnam, it's coming to Malaysia to have professional experience. Then expand your network in terms about how you are going to have more contacts to develop and to learn more about your major. Develop yourself, because of course you're being out of your comfort zone, but something that is important is entrepreneurial scene. And why this? It's because if you think about what is the purpose, usually when we are bringing someone from the company, it's because they are starting and we need all the ownership towards to make the things happen, because at the end the startup is trying to improve the things and trying to create and achieve the objectives, let's say. But if we move to another stakeholder that should be the partners, um, it's something clear, and this is the kind of like clear value proposition that you need to understand. Because if you are approaching a company, it's because you can sell them that, yeah, we are really fast to make the process. You can have international talent, you are going to have youth talent, that they're going to have new and fresh ideas. And the point of this is that if you understand the value proposition at the end, when you're approaching a company, it's going to be easy to sell the opportunity. You're going to have opportunities, and then when you're approaching your IR partners, you can give them the supply for you can give them the demand for the supply that they can give us, right? So if we talk a little bit about the MOS and KPI, as every operation in ISEC, we have a specific MOS. I hope that you know which one is it, and it's completed, right? Completed, it's because if you understand what is the like the let's say like the reason behind, or how did you achieve the complete, is because you are being customer centricity with customer centricity mindset for the AP, because you are providing the existing standards, you are delivering the experience and so on. But if you think more like in detail in terms how IGE works, um, you cannot only think in completed, because of course complete is talking about like the experience itself of the trainee. So of course we have 16 standards, because it's all the experience that we go to make the pickup, that we have the IPS, that the person has the OPS, that expectation setting and so on. So if the person have everything and the person fulfill the survey and then the LDA, we're going to have the completed. That's amazing, right? But something that we need to understand as a MOS also is how are we going to ensure to keep the companies with us. And the reason of that is because now we have partner standards. So when you are ensuring that you're going to have exchange standards, you also need to ensure that you're going to have the partner standards with all your TN takers. Because at the end, partner standards is almost the same thing like that you have the production, attraction, consideration, experience, and closing. And this is to ensure that you are going to retain those companies with your LC. So if we go more in detail, we can see how itself is the funnel and in terms of the KPIs, right? So when we're talking about OGE, we have to talk about the sign up in terms of the EPs that are applying, or if we're talking about iGE, are the startups that are using POP, that is the Partners Opportunities Portal that we have now, that the companies can look for ISA profiles or look for us as an organization in the platform itself. So we in G, let's say in IG, we're going to have the opens. So in opens we have two important criteria, and that is something that we need to have like change mindset in terms how we work now in IG, because opens you can define it for two things: the quality of opens, that it means that you're going to have opens aligned to the subproducts that I already presented before. And it's because if you have opens, let's say people that is going to clean the windows, how are you going to ensure that you can find supply for those opens? Let's say that you're going to find the EP that are going to be interested to come to Malaysia for 3 months to clean windows. So you have to be clear that the quality of the opens should be good enough to give the interest for the people. So the people around the world can be interested to come to Malaysia, to come to your LC, to work in the startup that you're working with. Then, besides quality, you need to understand that the open should be aligned to the market. So, we already have the market research, and the market research says that we should be working with IT and marketing, that we can explore a little bit of VA. So, what is the point of alignment of the supply? If you know that you are working, let's say, with Morocco, and Morocco, they have trainees, uh, well, they have EPs mainly for IT. So let's say that from 10 EPs, 8 are for IT and 2 are for teaching. So you know that for sure they can work with you because they have IT and you have IT in your companies, right? Most of the companies should be for IT. So you know that they are IT, but then you need to know more about in detail about the characteristics of your customer. So you go to talk with your IR partner, and the person in Morocco explain to you, okay, the profiles usually they have knowledge about this, and these computer skills. They speak 3 languages, and they don't have experience because they are studying. So when you go and approach the company, you explain exactly that the same thing that your partner told you. So, okay, we can give you profiles from Morocco. The profiles from Morocco are from IT. They have experience, they don't have experience, sorry. They have this knowledge about computer skills and they speak these specific languages. So, when the company is going to tell you, I want people from Germany, from Netherlands, from France, and whatever, you can align like, okay, we cannot give you those profiles because we have country partners. So, in that moment is when you are going to align your open to the market that you have. So let's say when you are talking about supply and demand, in incoming the supply are going to be all the EPs that you have, and then the demand is going to be the companies that you can have. So is the moment when you are going to align the supply and demand together to have and to make the process faster and easier for you. Then we are going to have the applicants, and for sure we're let's say that we can have applicants for all the year, but the point here to understand is like the applicants are going to come in only if you have a good relation with your IR partner, because you're going to provide them materials, because you are going to explain them how to work with your opportunities, what are the requirements for the companies, and they're going to align those requirements for all the sign-ups that they're having in the platform. Then in terms of between applicant and accepted, that there is a big like any big gap that sometimes can happen, and it's really important to understand that the acceptance are going to happen only if you have clarity in terms how to work with the SOP with your companies. The reason behind is because let's say in IGE, you need to have the final confirmation from the company that the person passed the interview. So in that moment, you can click the accept to the next one, and you can ensure that that is going to happen only if the person passed all the screening process. So between acceptance and approval, that can take, let's say, that 1 week. And for this part, it's important to understand that sometimes this part can be dragged, but it's because of the visa. But usually, when the person is applying for G, they have really like they're interested in the opportunity. It's not like GV that sometimes can happen that the person applies, but they at the end is like, no, I don't want to take it. So then, if we're talking about the realization usually happens, let's say, um, between 1 month and 1 week to 2 months and a half. And of course, sometimes it can be different because it depends of the company, if the company is interested to have the profile now or not. But it's something that we cannot control, or we can control it, but it's not something that is that necessary to control. Then, in terms of the finish, we have of course the finish after 3 months of the realization. But as I said before, I want to explore a little bit more about 6 weeks because it's the supply that we have. Let's say that the countries are interested to have opportunities for 6 weeks, so we need to provide them those opportunities. Let's say. Then, in terms of the completed, of course, it's going to happen after the finish, and it's going to happen, as I said before, only if we ensure the exchange standards implementation. And to have the completed is of course it represents a lot of small details and specific activities that you are doing since the person is approved, but it's something that is going to ensure that you are having like customer centricity mindset in terms how you work with your function. So if you think in all the funnel of the operation, you need to think in two important parts, and the first one is process time, especially as I said, between accepted and approved, let's say, but ideally should be from applicant to approval. Because in this period of time, the process time is really, really long. The reason, because the companies are not replying, let's say, because you don't align your SOP, or because you are not contacting the people on time when they apply for your opportunities. So process time is something that we can control only if we ensure how to work with the companies and how we implement routine with the basics like let's say like use frequently expand check expand in a daily basis. Then response rate, because something that can happen is like that you deliver all your exchange standards, but the AP doesn't fill the survey. So it doesn't matter if the person go to finish and then the person can be incompleted, but if they don't complete the survey, nothing is going to change. So you have to ensure that your response rate for the EPs it's like 100%. And of course, if you don't have to complete it, it's because maybe you are missing some specific parts of the delivery or of the experience that you cannot change it. Let's say. Then the existing exchange standards that of course are aligned to the completed. But something else that is missing here also it's the parties standards that I said before. That is something that we are implementing, and in Malaysia is something that we're working together with the exchange standards. So in the moment that we track exchange standards, we're tracking all partners standards to understand that we have customer centricity mindset. Then key focus and job description. So in terms of the focus, honestly, if I think about it, I would think more than three, but these ones are the most important ones. So the first one, product and operational management. As every operation in ISEC, you need to understand clearly how to work with the product and how should be the operational in terms of mindset, in terms of supply, in terms of the resources. And this is to ensure that you are going to work with all the understanding, the knowledge, but also trying to improve in a daily basis. Then customer experience management. In this part, you have to think in your stakeholders. So if you think in stakeholders, you think in companies, you think in EPs, and you think in members, right? So customer experience is you are taking care of all your stakeholders, because at the end, it's the people that is working or you're working with them, right? In terms of the supply and demand, as I said, supply is going to represent the EPs, and demand are going to represent all the companies that you're working with. So in this part, it's important to understand that IR is the main reason to work for supply and demand. If you know the countries that you can work with and you are approaching them, in that moment you are building international relations. So the management of those international relations that you're having with the country partners is the key to have good applicants, is the key to have enough applicants, is the key to have like co-delivery process, is the key to have completed, is the key to make your life easier as a VP. So when we are talking about IR partnerships, mainly the IR partnerships are being those scaled by the MC. So let's say that the MC made the analysis about which should be the countries, and then it's on scale to the LCs, and the LCs have the information about LC to LC partnership. But in that part, it's important to understand that sometimes can happen that if the LC is interested to explore a new market, they can do it. So it's something that you can start working on it if you're interested to have a new market for your supply, let's say. What about the timeline of the function, right? So if you see the timeline, um, it's important to understand that the information here it's only from January to July. But of course, we in ISEC we work by semester. Let's say so we start January. No, let's say we start February until July, and then August until January. So if you check this, it's only based on one semester, but basically it's overlapping the two semesters together. So for in the functions like IGT and IGE in Malaysia, we don't have like IGV that they have PD for IGV, because PD for IGV is the responsible to have the opportunities to have the NGOs to find, let's say, all the TN takers. But in IGT and IGE, we don't have that. So basically, the person that is working for IGE should be responsible to provide the opens for the LC. So what is happening with that? If we're talking about opens, as I said before, you have to think in quality and then to market alignment. But it's not easy, and I know. But you need to think how can you have one step ahead of the timeline? Because let's say that your applicants are going to be coming, let's say, from the second week of January. It means that you need to have the opens already before of that week, right? So it means that if you're going to have the applicants at that moment, you should be start to making sales since October, so you can ensure that in January you're going to complete all your opens and you can close sales in that moment. Because if you have enough opens, the people can apply and you can make the rest of the funnel. So IGT and IGE should be working aligned to the timeline. So if you have people for sales, that people is going to be working in a specific period of time, and then the rest of the team is going to be working in matching. But it's something that is not happening in Malaysia because we don't have like the strength, like the strong culture of sales, and we don't have this, let's say, this understanding about the timeline and how can it affect us and how can it drag all the energy of you as a CP and also of all your members. So if you think about the accepted and approval, it's something that is happening almost together. And the biggest peak of accepted and approvals, it's coming from April to May and then to November. The reason of this, you have to understand that is you need to check the timeline of the universities. So it's the moment when all the people is deciding to take an internship, and it's before when the semester ends. Let's say for the first semester, but then in November, something that is not happening in AP, but it's common to happen, is Black Friday. So in this peak, usually OGE, OGT, and OGV they have discounts, so the people is more interested to have itself the approval in that period of time. So if we talk a little bit about key synergy of the function, we can see that we have three main synergies. So the first one, it's PM, like all the front office functions, we have synergy with PM, and it's because of course we need to understand how to work and how to manage the membership. Then we have a synergy with LCP, and the reason is because the profile for IGE as a LCP should be someone that really wants to make the product growth. IG has a lot of potential because in Malaysia, if you check how the startups and the small companies are like are growing right now, you have a lot of opportunities to approach. But sometimes we are like really afraid. We are not fearless enough to approach companies. Like we see a company probably is in a startup, probably is fulfilling the requirements. Just approach them. Like, hey, are you interested to have EPs? I can give you a package. So it's like it's how fearless are we to make sales that is like how fearless are we going to be to make the product growth. It's something that isn't the mindset that we can have. But to have this vision, it's something that you need to understand, and you need to align how do you want to see your LC, and it's something that you need to align and discuss with your LCP. And for that reason, the product development plan, goals versus actual, the strategy that you want to implement, and the reality, it's something that you need to have a space and discuss with your LCP. How do you want to see the function itself in your LC? And then one synergy that is really, really important is finance. And why? Because IG, we charge, let's say, 1 or 1.5K per company, per trainee, right? So basically, if we are having opens, it means that we're going to receive money in the account of the LC. And if we have the approval, of course, again, we are going to have it. So basically, IG, we are bringing cash flow more than, let's say, another functions. So the point of this is that we need to understand how we're going to be strategical in terms how we work with that money. How can we use part of that money to make investments, to make promotion, to I don't know, to make packages for the companies or whatever that can be more attractive, and at the end can give us the opportunity to grow as a function. And then in terms of legalities, because all the APs that are coming for GE, they need to have visa. We have two kinds of visa, and it doesn't matter if the person can stay here for, let's say, for 3 months. They need visa because it's one of the objectives that we have as an ISIC is to be legal, and legalities, of course, is representing also the visa process that we have. So finance is one of the most important synergies that we need to have. In terms of the frequency that you should have with them, should be one monthly, and in terms of finance, can be even through 2 times, let's say bi-weekly, but it depends how is the performance of your LC. If we talk about key competence, it's something not hard to understand, but it's something that you need to think as a self-awareness, like what are your core competence and what are the core competence that the function is having, and how can you align your strengths to learn about it. So basically, agility, set piece, of course, eagerness, and sparks ambition. The last one is really important because, as I said, IG Malaysia can really grow a lot because we have the market, but maybe we have the market, but we are not approaching the companies, and then we are not sure how to work with IR. So of course we can have the market and then we can have the opportunities, but if we don't know how to work with IR, how are we going to ensure that we're going to match companies with IR or companies with the profiles? So as Sparks ambition is something that is going bigger, not just in terms like, yeah, I want to have more, I don't know, growth of 100 percentage in terms of approvals. Is how you vision IG in Malaysia itself. Is how you see your LC managing a function that at the end is not just a function, it's something that all the trainees that we are going to have is going to be the future professionals of the new companies. So it's like, how can you understand that the value proposition that we are providing to the companies and to the youth, it's something that is reflecting the necessities of the market. And then in terms of persona, you need to have like clarity of the insights and championing the customer. And this is in terms about how you have the customer centricity mindset, and how can you take, like, let's say, how can you be data oriented or data driven and take all the information to make that data useful for your function and to make the things happen in your function. um, so basically that's all from my side. If you have like any question here, you have any information, and you can contact me, like whatever, it's easy. So yeah, so I already finished. I'm going to have 5 minutes, so if you have any comment or whatever, you can just type it and I'm going to see it here and I'm going to reply. So I'm going to give 5 minutes so you can have time to type it, okay? Okay, I don't have questions in this part, so basically we're done. I hope that this space was really useful and that you can learn about it. So if you have any question, as I said, just approach me and I will help you. So thanks so much. Bye, peeps.